Hi there, and welcome back to Artisan Upholstery Studio. It's me, Amy, and today we're going to talk about sewing machines. So let me introduce you to my machine. This is a vintage Singer, model number 9680, and although we've never discussed its exact age, that would be rude. I figure it was built in the 40s or 50s. Most notable thing about this machine, because I use it as my main machine, and I work with very heavy, multiple layers of fabric, it does not have a walking foot. And in case you don't know what a walking foot is, it's basically a machine that has a foot at the bottom and the top, and they both work together to feed the fabric through. This one has the feed dog at the bottom, only like a regular household machine, and it just has never let me down. I've never ever felt as though I needed a walking foot machine because this one has been so good at getting through multiple layers of fabric. Now, if you're planning to work a lot with leather or vinyl, you will want to consider a walking foot machine. So with leather or vinyl, you need to top stitch, and a top stitch is best when it is even and confident, and that is best done with a walking foot. So you may be wondering why I chose a vintage machine over something that was built more recently. And to be honest, it is because of my core belief that anything that was made back then was made better than it is today. So things made today look beautiful, and they're computerized, and they're fancy, and they do all kinds of fancy things, but they are made with parts that were meant to break and wear out within a certain amount of years. So vintage machines were built to last forever, and this, I believe, will last forever if it's maintained and used properly. So as you may know, there are many feet that you can get for your machine to do lots of different things. So I use 4. I have like 20, I use 4, and I'm going to show you what they do right now. So the main foot that I have in my machine pretty much at all times is a just regular single piping foot. It looks like this. It has a groove and a hole, and that allows the needle to pass through, getting very close to the side of the piping. Let me show ya. So you can see that the piping is nice and clean. It has no puckers. It got really close to the side of it. So the next foot that I have is a double piping foot. Same idea, but now you can fit 2 rows of piping in there, and I'll show you how that works. All right, so you can see that this has made a double piping. Now, obviously, you would never use black thread with white fabric, but that's to show you the stitch that it made. Oh, you trim this off, then you have the trim. Okay. So if I am top stitching or just making a regular seam, no piping, this is the foot that I would use. These come in lots of different shapes and they look different sometimes, but this is just basically to sew a straight stitch. And finally, sometimes you have to sew tight channels, and this really, really skinny one has come in handy for that. And I'll show you what I mean right now. I'm sewing through foam. It's hard to see with the light. So you can see that because it's such a small foot, it goes really nicely into a groove. And again, you wouldn't want black thread with white fabric, but you can see that it made a nice stitch down there, creating a fluted kind of look. So, thread for your machine. When you're working with upholstery fabrics, you want heavyweight upholstery thread. So when you're sewing a cushion, for example, you can't just go ahead and use any old thread. You got to use the heavyweight upholstery thread. Otherwise, it could break and come apart, and that would mean an inferior job, and you don't want to be known for your inferior sewing jobs. So bonded nylon, I believe, is fairly standard for the industry, and it comes on these big giant rolls. So invest in your colors wisely. So as you can imagine, because you're sewing through heavy fabric, upholstery fabric is heavy, and because you're sewing through multiple layers of it, usually, the size of the needle is very important. And the size of the needle that I use typically is 18 in America, or 110 if you are using the European measurement. So all needles have both. And so this one is listed as 110, 18, and that's what I use mainly. So one last note to keep your machine running smoothly is it is very important to keep it clean, because upholstery fabrics like velvets and chenilles shed little fibers that get caught under this plate, and you want to get under there and clean everything out. I even take a blower from my compressor and just blow it out every few days, and it keeps everything running really smoothly. As always, thank you for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please post them below. It helps lots of people when you ask a question. I do my best to answer them. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.